I'd like to introduce her name badge looks like it says Jensine, but it's not. It's actually Jensine is how it's pronounced. Larsen is an award-winning digital impact entrepreneur. She's an international journalist and an expert on technology to strengthen global women's power. She's the founder of World Pulse, an independent, women-powered global social network connecting tens of thousands of women from 200 plus countries and bringing them a greater global voice. Through World Pulse, women leaders are impacting over 24.8 million lives by building global movements, launching businesses, changing policies, and transforming harmful cultural practices. Jensine has received multiple awards from the United Nations and spoken on stages from the BBC, TED, and the White House to village squares and women's community centers across the globe. As part of her talk, Jensine will introduce and interview World Pulse leader Beatrice Achieng Nas, a current crusader for girls' education who has flown here from Uganda to be with us today and a personal friend of mine. So, 5 truths and a lie. Number 1, she's been struck by lightning twice. Number 2, she once scolded Jane Goodall. Number 3, she grew up on a farm and her favorite game was playing dress up with baby goats. She was selected to be honored by the shaman to the president of Ecuador. And number 5, she's been on a small boat watching a single humpback whale jump out of the water 200 times. Need a repeat?
Yeah, let's hear the vote.
Okay.
Number
1, the struck by lightning twice.
You're saying no? Okay.
Number 2, scolded Jane Goodall. 3, grew up on a farm and favorite goat game, dressing up. Selected to be honored by the shaman to the president of Ecuador. And how about the small boat watching a single humpback whale? Okay. It was number 1. She's been struck by lightning once, not twice.
Thank you, Karen. Come on down, Jensine. Woo! Give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
In all fairness, the scolding of Jane Goodall was totally warranted. And so you can find me at a break and I can tell you all about that. So I'm very curious as I look around this room with incredibly smart people. Does anybody in the room know how long it's estimated to get to global gender equity at the current rate of progress? Anybody have a sense of how many years?
1,000.
You wouldn't be, you would think it would be, right? But it's not 1,000. Anybody else? 92, 83. We're very, very close, 92. So the answer is 130 years. And unfortunately, it was 100 years before the pandemic, but the pace has been rolling backwards. We've been unfortunately not progressing. So I want to talk about my deepest passion, which is this belief of how we can get the right combination of technology and women's leadership that can actually supercharge a revolution that can accelerate solutions to global problems. And my whole quest has been, how do we do this faster? How do we transcend this slow progress, this progress that's actually rolling backwards? And I mean, you just look at this, you just think 130 years. I mean, even in this country, the United States has fallen so much in the last year. It was we were 27th in the world in terms of gender equity for women, and we've fallen to 43rd in the United States in the last year. So that might be no surprise to those of us who are seeing the rollbacks that are happening even in our own country today. 130 years, I mean, just think about that huge loss of human wisdom, of human intellect to solve these global challenges, what this means. And I know some of us may be thinking about, this isn't going to happen in our lifetime. This might not even happen in our children's lifetime. And I am going to tell you a little bit about my journey, how I was able to build this dream, because I've been building this roadmap for how we can get there. How can we accelerate this progress? And I'm challenging you to really be imagining throughout this talk about what that might mean. Some of you might say, for my daughters. I have daughters. Some of you might say, for my mothers. But I want to challenge us all to think about, what is that world with a true gender balance going to look like for me? How is that world going to be better? And also, how is that going to be better for my sons? Or whatever gender your children are. It's for all of us, not just for our daughters. So I'm going to share, it's just a 3-minute video that just gives you a better window into the world of World Pulse. When I was a young girl, I was homeschooled on a farm, and I was paralyzingly shy. As I grew older, I realized something was burning inside of me. It was then that I saw the vision of World Pulse, of a vast, pulsing communication network where women could be their own messengers, speak for themselves in their own words, and, most importantly, be connected through their shared stories and not feel alone.
Today, tens of thousands of women are logging on to World Pulse from 190 countries, speaking out, supporting each other, and going on to change the lives of millions of people in their communities. A global social network where every woman's voice can rise up to transform society. World Pulse is where a woman can speak for herself and grow her confidence. It's a safe online space where she can gain digital skills and a global support network, where her dreams can become a reality and have an impact on millions of people, and soon billions. The power of World Pulse goes beyond page views, likes, and comments. On average, after 2 years, a woman active on World Pulse uses her newfound confidence and connections to grow her impact, reaching 2,000 more in her community. She becomes a change leader.
So I decided that I will no longer be silent again. I want to speak out. I don't want to be afraid anymore, so that other women will be able to speak out too.
I learned it in World Pulse that there is power in every woman, irrespective of where you are. World Pulse taught me that we live in a global village, connecting to each other's strengths, learning from each other.
It began as a place to share my stories and my heartaches and sadness, but it became a place to rejoice every single day.
My confidence, stepping up, my activism is a gift from World Pulse.
When our World Wide Web grows to 500,000 women, our collective impact will surpass 1 billion. We will reach a global tipping point in 10 years, not 100.
So somehow, as this obsessive social entrepreneur, I created a job for myself where every day I get to listen to what's on the hearts of minds of women across the planet. And somehow, growing up very shy, I created this entity that has helped me find my voice, that has given me strength, that has given my life purpose, my life meaning. I'm going to tell you some stories today about the ways that this is available to all of us, that being able to, at a click of a button, actually connect with extraordinary leaders and support their journeys, like the incredible Beatrice, who we're going to meet later on today. My story begins here. I grew up in rural Midwest. This is in Wisconsin. This is my secret place where I would go behind the barn. I was homeschooled, so I'd bring all my books and I'd lay down my blankets and I'd just read and I would dream. And I'd read African folk tales and other stories, and I just yearned to leave the countryside. I yearned to see the world. But I was also very scared because I had this, whenever I was in public, like my voice was really trapped in my throat. I can only describe it as like burning, and it just couldn't come out. So I thought, well, what if I just go and travel the world and listen and see what's happening, especially to women, because I knew I was not getting the truth in the newspapers. So at 19 years old, I went to the Ecuadorian Amazon rainforest, and I ended up connecting through friends there and working with indigenous women who were struggling with oil contamination on their traditional lands, as you can see. And the women kept saying to me, they said, please take our stories, tell our stories to the world, because our waterways have been contaminated and our children are dying of all sorts of cancers, stomach cancer, skin cancers. I know that we have been talking a lot about cancer here in the last few days. And if you can imagine, all the children, most of the children of your community having cancer, that was what they were dealing with. So at that moment, I decided that I would become a journalist and I would take these stories forward. And I went to the Burma-Thai border and began interviewing women there. And that is where the vision actually came to me of World Pulse, because these women, many of them fleeing the dictatorship in Burma, is known as Myanmar, and their villages had been bombed. Some of their family members have been killed in front of them. I can't even imagine. That's the worst you could ever dream. And so they were, the school of the military dictatorship was known as a school of mass rape. So the things they were telling me were just the most unthinkable things. And yet every time I held the microphone in these interviews, there was this flicker of light inside of them. What do you hope for? What's your vision? And I could see they knew the answers. They knew what needed to happen for democracy in their country. But who was going to listen to them? Who was going to read these stories that I published? And so the vision came to me like a bolt of lightning. I was feeling super hopeless. I was just really exhausted one day, and I was on a bamboo mat. I under the stars. It was a hot night. I was just like really sweating. I couldn't sleep. I felt nothing I can do is going to make a difference here. But just looking at the stars, they started to talk to me in this half sleeping and waking. It was like they were pulsing. And I knew as I looked at them, like, oh, this is when a woman's voice gets unlocked, it is unlocking these other voices. It's creating this chain reaction, and this pulse started building and building and building to this beautiful blue light in the shape of a globe. And I just went, oh my God, it's kind of like being hit by lightning. It's not about just lifting up these voices, it's about connecting, the power of connecting these voices. That is one of the great power, and I can't be a journalist anymore. I can't be this messenger for these other voices. There needs to be a platform in the world where they can speak for themselves in their own words, where they can be their own messengers, and where they can connect to each other to build power and not feel so alone. It was like, duh, so obvious. And I didn't know, though, how. I had no idea how to do this. I, again, was still incredibly shy. So it seemed almost impossible, just a wish, really. I went home. I held it inside for maybe another 10 years. And yet something kept knocking, like, where is this? Why isn't this happening? It needs to exist. And as I was out in the world, I started researching and learning more about the reality of what we're up against. So to this day, there is not a single nation in the world where women have an equal voice. And the stats are just pretty staggering. You look at women in parliament, still 24%. We've been stuck there for a while, tiny incremental changes. You look at global media, the latest reports, only 19% of women are featured as experts in global media. Even in all of recorded history, women's voices and stories only occupy 5% of recorded history, according to the New York Times. And that's no better in the online world, right? I mean, we're existing there in the online world, especially if you're a woman or a gender diverse individual, you know. But latest reports, 52% of women and girls have experienced online violence or harassment. Very silencing, right? Many are dropping offline because of that or fear of speaking out. And then that's if you can get online, because today, women are 20 to 40% less likely to have access to the internet, and especially in places like Africa, low-income countries, that's where you're getting on the higher end of the scale. So imagine not even being able to check the weather or access the markets or get any information or participate civilly in the world. Much of humanity is being blocked from that, and then they're falling farther and farther behind in terms of progress for the world. So again, 130 years, when we have 10 years left probably for humanity, to save humanity. But here's the thing though, if you look at the data, and I kept reading I was doing so much research, but really experts do agree, all world institutions that are doing studies, that if investing and supporting women and women's leadership actually is at the heart and the key to solving global challenges, because it's been so imbalanced for so long, so left out, this wisdom, this intelligence. And that goes from pretty much any issue that you can think about. I mean, whether it's reducing climate change, Project Drawdown just came out and said actually educating women and girls is one of the top things you can do for reducing climate change. Ending poverty, just equal, women playing an equal role in the economy means $28 trillion can be added to the GDP. 30-year study coming out of Purdue on networks of women globally, and they found it was the single greatest predictor of reducing violence in society and having that violence, laws, and culture actually stay and not get worse, having strong networks. Political participation, we know now that if you hit that 30% mark, that 30% threshold of women in any decision-making body or government, that starts to create a tipping point for laws that are shifting. And policies are more likely to benefit society as a whole. We even saw this with COVID, for example. If you look at the countries where COVID was handled the best, the least people died, many of those countries, whether that was New Zealand, whether that was Germany, you saw good policies coming out. So here I'm doing all of this research, and then I'm also thinking, you know, here comes this technology wave, and it is an accelerator for the first time. If you have a cell phone, you can log on, your voice can reach the world. So much opportunity is there. And then you have the shadow side where this gender digital divide, the violence, the divisiveness. What if we could actually transcend this toxic technology of today? What if we could create a space that was truly enabling of these voices that have been suppressed for so long? And so I took the leap. It was absolutely terrifying. A lot of people said, gosh, you're awfully young, and this is such a big vision. How are you actually going to do this, connecting all the women of the world? And why don't you pare it back? Focus yourself a little bit more. So I had a lot of doors that shut on me. And I raised my first $400,000 just from $50 and $100 checks from mostly women, but also amazing men in small living rooms across the West Coast who were like, I believe you can do this. and slowly, slowly built World Pulse. And actually, this is a snapshot of a moment on the World Pulse network of all the connections that are happening. And it's so incredible because it does remind me of that original vision that I had. And today, the network is over 100,000, impacting over 25 million lives with all of the initiatives that our members go on to do, being a part of the network. And it includes incredible men. Our network is about 10% men and gender diverse individuals who really are strong allies to women and really want to come in, and they're doing incredible work for gender justice in their communities. So when the World Pulse came online, I didn't know it was going to work. I mean, it was really home scratch built with people who didn't really know what we were doing. So we launched the platform. We were looking like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And slowly, slowly from Kenya, in the midst of horrible election violence, in the midst, in Colombia, in the rural jungles, in the South Africa, Brazil in the favelas, we started seeing these little voices like popping on, coming in, telling their stories. It was like we uncorked something. And as we watched this alchemy happen, one voice would say, like, I really am in a difficult spot. I really need something. Someone would say, I have something to offer. Someone would just pour their heart out about horrific violence that had happened to them. Somebody said, I believe you. Somebody said, I'm here for you. And this incredible, these voices started to rise. They started to bloom. They started to get confidence. It's kind of like the GOT that you have here. You know how you are creating a safe space to be vulnerable. And you can do that in an online space. I'm a testament to that. And look what happens. You can see for each other what happens as you support each other, you network with each other, you believe in each other, what starts to happen. And really, I think, some of you know Malala, right? So Malala talks about, I'm just one girl. I'm not anyone that special. But there are tens of thousands of other Malalas out there. Hundreds of thousands, millions of Malalas. And that's what we have been building, what I've been obsessed with building so that we can support those hundreds of thousands of Malalas. And then they came back and started supporting me. When my partner died of a heart attack suddenly after 12 years of being together, they were there for me. When I thought about closing World Pulse because I just didn't have it, the energy or the resources, they said, we're here for you. We believe in you. Don't worry, you sleep, you rest. Jensine, you're up too late. And then on the other side of the world, they'd be like, we're here in Cambodia. We're here in South Africa. We're going to carry the flame for you. We believe in this. So somehow this, magical space had been created. And things like this woman started to happen. They started to write us and say, this is what happened to me. Samira from Pakistan, she wrote us that a year ago she had come on to World Pulse at a time when she was sure she was going to end her life. She was going to end her life. She had decided that day because she was being cyber blackmailed by a man who had taken advantage of her. And she knew if her family found out, because they were very fundamentalist, that they would kill her. That's not that unusual, actually, in Pakistan. So she felt, I have nowhere to go. She sat on a bench and started scrolling online aimlessly. She saw the link to World Pulse. She started reading stories and saying, oh, wait a minute, I'm not alone. There are other women around the world experiencing this. She said she got angry. This isn't right. And she started getting legal support from people who were there for her. She started getting some resources. And a year later, when she wrote us, she had obviously decided that she was going to live, but she had started a legal clinic for young girls who were fighting cyber violence. And she was serving 100 of them. And so never doubt. You know, we're online, we're so jaded with like the Twitters, the X's, the blue skies, all of that, of just scrolling, and we feel very numb. You know, we can feel like these are devices of distraction, but I can tell you those comments that Samira got saved her life. And every single day, there are women who are feeling like I am so don't matter, and I shouldn't exist anymore. In my dream is going to die in darkness. A comment, a positive comment, an uplifting comment, a support, a connection can save these women's lives. So one of the biggest learnings I have that I'm going to share with you right now is that of all the things that women around the world want, there are three main things: greater voice, connection, and resources. Greater platform to be heard, they want that support, and they want resources. So we had to create, how do you create an online space that looks like that? Because we don't really have another model for it fully in the world. And the trust that you can have for women, they actually know what they need. They know what how to go about solving these challenges. So if you give them voice, connection, and resources, actually that's all you have to do. You don't have to solve the world problem. You don't have to sit here and say, how do I figure out water sustainability? How do I figure out how to save the oceans? Actually, all you really have to do is support women's leadership to bring that balance up. And that was such a relief to me. Like, oh my God, I don't have to solve everything, but I can support and back up these incredible women leaders. The platform, if you do log on, you'll see there's all these leadership roles and badges and ways that we had to design to create safe space for the voices that have been suppressed, have been silenced, and find new ways to really invite women to speak. And that's the third learning, that oftentimes women aren't just going to speak, you got to invite them. So our speaker before, I think Trey was his name, I'm not sure. You saw it happen in the room. Like maybe there weren't that many women speaking up and said, let's invite women to speak. So that is actually a really powerful strategy that any of you can do. If you're like, why is everybody so silent? You can invite, and you can design a platform that can invite. We have digital online impact dashboards as well, kind of like a Fitbit. So if you're building an orphanage or you're running for office, you can put your impact in there, you can track it, so you've got really can see that data as well. So in a moment, I'm going to bring up Beatrice, who's going to speak for herself about her journey through World Pulse. And before that, just two more stories of extraordinary leaders. One, Nema Namadamu from the Democratic Republic of Congo. She logged on many years ago. She was born with polio in one of the worst places in the world to be a woman. It's about 5 to 10% internet access in the Congo. And of course, mass conflict happening in the region she is, in Bukavu. She logged on, and her mother brought her on her back to school. So she got an education, she got access to a computer, and she started saying, my dream, my burning dream is I want the women of my country to have the microphone. I want to connect them across the country. I want the world to hear what's happening here. So she set out creating these cyber centers. And today, she's been training over 3,000 women, especially those with disabilities, who'd never had an email account. And now they're accessing the world, and they are going on, after it's been 8 years, to become judges, heads of nonprofit organizations, speaking internationally. And they fight, Nema says they fight like 3 butts per seat to try to get in front of the computers. And men come, and men protect the center, actually, to make sure that the women have the access to it. But so Nema's now so famous because of her work and having such a connection to the world. She's now a friend of Angelina Jolie. Just a few months ago, she was acknowledged by the BBC as one of the top most inspiring women in the world for her work. And the women of the Congo have reached the White House through their voices and appointed a U.S. Special Envoy through that work. And then Sister Zeph from Pakistan, she had a free school, but she had no roof. It's a country where over 50% of women are illiterate. So very few girls get to go to school. So she had to fight to convince parents to bring girls to her free school. Not even a roof, right? 10 years she's been slaving away. Death threats that she's getting, losing a lot of students from acid burning and the killing of these girls because they're girls. She just won the $1 million Global Teacher Prize a few months ago out of 7,000 applicants because of the schools that she built after speaking out on World Pulse, getting resources and support. And she basically created an online university for her students and now has many, many roofs and security systems. Just absolutely phenomenal. So at the end of the day, at the theme of transcendence, I am standing before you as someone who knows that it's absolutely possible to build an antidote to the toxic tech of today, that we can create tender tech, we can create online spaces that bring out the best of humanity. And we are building to support the 500,000 Nemas, Sister Zephs, and Beatrices who are going to go on and create a tipping point. We're building our tech infrastructure further, but also making new alliances, technology alliances, and global institution alliances that are coming together today. So yes, your cell phone can be not a device of distraction, but a portal for purpose and power. And we invite you to do that. Invite to amazing leaders like Beatrice. So Beatrice, I would love to invite you to come down here today. I'm going to do a little interview, a little fireside chat. Please, please, please. Yes. Thank you. So Beatrice, I'm so excited that you could come here from Uganda. Beatrice is literally one of the most unstoppable leaders I know, and you are going to be so inspired by her. And so Beatrice, we met a decade ago. Let's start at the beginning. It was well over 10 years ago when we met. Of course, we met online, and was starting to read your stories. So Beatrice was writing these stories about what it was like to be one of 12 children and living in rural Uganda, and some of the really difficult circumstances that you were going through. And so what was it like for you when you were writing those stories? What was happening for you on the other side of the screen?
First of all, I would like to introduce my dress to you. I bring the whole rural community in Uganda and Africa with me. This dress represents the vulnerable. This dress carries every suffering soul, especially the women and girls. I was in agony, pain, and emptiness when I joined World Pulse. I was looking for a solution for my family, having lost 7 brothers of mine to HIV, and also one sister to HIV, and also another sister who was giving birth to twins. It was an empty life. And when I went to the internet to find a solution for where somebody would hear me or even just connect with me, I found World Pulse. And what struck me on World Pulse was the statement saying, "No one speaks for me, I speak for myself." And that just got me into World Pulse. And since then, it just became a home and a network and a safe place for my heart. It really healed me in so many ways.
There's this moment when, I'll never forget it, one of your stories popped up and it was like, "Help me, I don't know what to do." What was happening for you in that moment?
Now that was the very last dose of pain. Our firstborn brother and the last one died in the hospital. And here we were, my older sister, myself and my younger, and my mother, who was a widow, in the hospital, helpless. We didn't know how to transport this body nearly 300 miles away from the hospital. And I wrote World Pulse for help. And some people gave in money to help us transportation and managing the funeral. After burying my brother, the village elders had an eye on our land. And I kept sharing this on World Pulse. You know, when all men are gone in a family, those elders would take the land. So I had that power of so many voices coming and comforting me on World Pulse. So I told my mom, if ever the community elders come to you to threaten you to take our land, just tell them that there's a whole world of women around the world who will come and deal with them. And so my mother did just that. She said, if you ever try to take my land, a whole world of women will come here for you. So that ended the story. World Pulse saved our land.
And today, your land, you have?
And today we have our land. And today I've gained power in my voice. And today I am standing for myself through the confidence built via World Pulse. I started connecting with many people. Some of them are in this room who have been in the wider connection and the deeper connection. And truth be told, I have done so much through World Pulse. I needed to focus on one thing. I was trying to fight HIV, and I also wanted to provide girl child education. Because as a matter of fact, in Uganda today, 34% of young women do not get into 18th birthday before getting married. They just get married. And about 7 get married by age 15. Not because they want to get married, but because there's no way to keep in school. And if a young girl or a young woman is just home without education, the parents see them as kind of useless. Like they rather go and earn a goat or a cow from them. So that's why they end up getting married. So I realized my dream to support girls' child education. And I started this because I was also sponsored at some point of my life. I wouldn't actually have gained education, but I was sponsored by an American family from Kentucky who educated me from high school, where I had dropped out of school for like 2 years, until university. So we started supporting girls in school. And as I talk to you now, we have sponsored over 200 young women and men in schools with careers. These are people of careers, leave alone the photo you're seeing now. We have doctor, one medical doctor. We have nurses, about 40 nurses right now. We have secondary school teachers, primary school teachers, accountants, different fields. And apparently, we have 351 young people in the school. We ended up building a school. Actually, the school started this way. When we took young girls to secondary school in the city, we made sure we took them to the city for study so that they experience a different life. Because the life they have in their homes is a house without electricity, without running water. They had no shoes, no bedding. So we took them to better schools in the city, which really transformed their lives. And when they came back home after like 6 months, their parents said, we need to start a school in the village. So I went to my village, under a mango tree, I found a school. I found babies in class, and what's going on? That we have started a school. So they started the school under the mango tree, and the sun was so hot. So I was inspired to look for ways of building a school. To cut the long story short, The nursery was built, primary school was built, and high school construction is ongoing. And some of the people in this room have been instrumental in this journey. So this is how the network has happened. So I was once in her talk somewhere with Jensine, somewhere, I think Portland, and then Laurie here got in touch with me, and then Laurie connected me with Karen, and Karen has connected me with Corinne, and Corinne has connected me with Rich, sorry. So this has been a network, not just this network. So many people are supporting our work from around the world because of the change they see, because of the massive impact. Karen there has supported the construction of the schools, right from primary dormitories. She has helped us acquire a building for a bakery and even just funding the bakery program. She has helped with beekeeping. She has helped to mentor me, and she has been very patiently mentoring me. I've never seen anybody so patient in mentoring somebody. So she has really shaped my life, and I thank her for this opportunity to be here.
Yes, and I love some of these photos. I mean, these girls, what's happening in these pictures?
So most of these young people, especially this girl, lost both of her parents to HIV. She was so young when she lost her parents. And then that joy you see was because of the national exams that came out, that she excelled. So the grandparents were so happy to see that their children are excelling in school. And actually the other one you first showed is now an accountant. She did finance and accounting, and this one did statistics, and they're both working right now. They are career women.
So Beatrice, what does the community look like now? How is it different from when you were living there with all of this education and advancement you've brought?
Wow. So apparently we are supporting 28 villages in 3 districts and starting to make a difference, to break cultural barriers, to make people believe in education wasn't easy. When I just started sponsoring young people, some people said I go to under the water to the devil to get money and come back from the devil with money to take children to school, and that I would sacrifice some of them so that I get more money. So that happened in the first 3 months. And people talked and talked, but then they didn't see any child die. They all came back healthy and looking good from school. And change started to happen. And as I talk to you now, even then there was a lot of domestic violence. A case that really pained me was a 7-month pregnant woman who was kicked on the stomach by the husband and died just after a day. And the man was not even prosecuted. So, but as I talk to you now, through our sponsorship program, we have terms and conditions that you're not supposed to violate your family. No fighting your wife or children, and no fighting your husband. We defend everybody. We don't only defend women and children. We defend men as well. So as I talk to you now, in the 28 villages, there's no violence. There's no domestic violence, like people fighting. Here, there's no fighting.
No fighting.
And as I talk to you now, early marriages is completely wiped in those villages because now people are embracing education. And livelihood projects are ongoing. You know, when we first started, for me, poverty is a mindset. And poverty in Africa is, I can say it boldly, that it's a mindset. Because if you do not wake up to do anything to change your situation, you will always have an impact. So we kept awakening this one. Wake up with something in your head to improve your family. Wake up, your house is leaking and you're just not doing anything about it. Wake up and roof your house. Wake up and keep even just 2 chickens to feed your children. So we kept awakening people, and now they've embraced farming, they're doing small poultry, they're doing small piggery, they're doing vegetables, they're supporting their families, and there's change. people are working to change, and we have seen testimonies of people flourishing. And even just happiness. People used to be very sad. You know, since we began PCE Foundation, we never end meeting. Every end of month, every last Saturday of the month, the parents meet to discuss issues affecting their communities. And if you don't turn up for that meeting, you are fined by the chairperson. They're the chairperson of the group, the entire parents committee. So they come up every day to every end of month to discuss issues affecting their communities. And that has bonded them even more. And there's more joy and laughter, just like you're meeting here and talking about sensitive issues and also cracking jokes. That's what happens in our community. Yeah.
We want to get to some questions, Q&A from the audience here as well. But I want to get to your big dream, because I think Beatrice is a great example of what I was talking about. Like, all you have to do is support, resource, connect an amazing leader like this, and they understand the multifaceted issues to address. What you've done is just incredible. And I encourage all of you to think about going to Uganda. We'll talk about that. Just a quick video of this was my trip this summer. Unbelievable, the joy of this community. Just incredible that you can feel. And that's a community that knows its children have a future and have education in their future. So we've talked about the bakery and everything, but I want to just have you end on your big vision, Beatrice. What do you see now? What's next after everything you've achieved?
And just so to say, that brass band you saw was also donated by Karen. That welcomed you.
Incredible, unbelievable.
At first, I wanted to make sure I start a university in the next 15 years. But I have nullified that again. I'm thinking that having holistic education, right from nursery to high school, with practical classes, that gives some kind of vocational skilling to young people, would make a whole lot of difference, so that as they cross from these schools to get into another level of career, they know exactly what they want to do with their lives. So my vision right now is to at least open 3 more schools, and that is in the region of East Africa, that have model standards, that can equip young people mentally, physically, and in every way that they grow responsible, both young men and young women, because in this generation, without embracing both gender, we are still going to be imbalanced. So we are trying, and especially Africa is in trouble, because the men in Africa, most of them are still asleep. And it takes both women and men who are awake to light this candle. And lighting this candle, I want to be part of it. I want to enlighten the young men. I want to enlighten the young women. So the school program, I would like to continue with it from nursery to high school in East Africa. The other thing I want to do is to continue with the bakery program, because I think it's a cool program. It generates some income that supports the school where there is no support, because the bakery we have right now is supplementing on the needs of the school. And not just that, there are also young people who dropped out of school, who have no plan for life, and there are also just young people who want to do baking. So we want to give baking skills, because every day we are going to eat. And baking and food will never end. So we want to help young people have bakery skills. And now we also need people who can be advisors. You are business people. Perhaps you can give us advice and skills in how to manage a bakery, how to manage a school, and that would help. So that's the big vision. Yes.
Yes, we love a big vision around here. Say it loud. So we have a few minutes left according to the clock. So if we thought if there's questions, Beatrice or I are happy to take any questions. Of course, so we can have lunch with you or dinner to follow up. Got one question there. Yeah, in the back.
Is it a nonprofit?
Yes.
Yes, it is
We're
a
both
nonprofit.
nonprofits.
I'll start off and give you $30,000.
Whoa.
See, we watched The Mentalist this morning, right? And look what happens.
No knows, right? We have in my ethical offshoring company in the Philippines, buy one, give one. So every person we give digital certified training out of Texas, which is valued at $12,000 with every person who's employed. On day one, we don't make them earn it. We give them the trust, and then they get to give one to the community. So I can give that freely. So I would like to then extend that to Africa, buy one, give one, pass one, if that's okay. And we employ over 100 a year, and as many as you need, because I think digital skills and certified, like global certifications for these women, I've seen in the Philippines what that has done for them. They go from
Huge.
yeah, they go from like, a couple of dollars an hour to over the $15 a mark an hour. And that they're not just paying for themselves, they're buying, like we have stories every day. They're buying their parents' houses and putting roofs on, and once a month everyone shares what they're doing. So let's take it out of the Philippines. Let's pass it on.
Awesome.
So that's my gift.
We loved it. We'll
Ongoing.
put the heads together to make that happen. Yay. Anything?
Cost to send a kid to high school?
It costs $480 a whole year.
$480 for a full year.
$480 for a whole year. And we put these young people in boarding simply because they don't have food in their homes. They don't have good shelter in their homes. So we try to help them have a safer place to live as well as get education.
And do you have like a waiting list, or everybody's served already?
We have so many people wanting education. So many children want education.
How many?
Even just last week, I was interfaced by a young girl who was sent away by the father after the mother died, and she was just on her own. So we had to absorb her in school. We have 103 now in school without sponsors, simply because they have such heartbreaking stories.
Yes.
Such difficult things to deal with. They can't even afford sanitary towel for themselves. I mean, children suffer a lot. So we have thousands of people who want to school, but at least 103 are in school,
right now.
but without sponsors.
Okay.
Yes.
What's it cost to build a school?
Well, it may cost nearly $60,000 around to build
It's cheap.
classrooms. Yeah.
By our standards, it's not expensive.
Yeah.
And then John. If you need 60, Marcus is in for 30, I'm in for 30, so now you've got your school. We did work in Kenya as a family with an organization called We that was sort of decimated sadly during COVID. And I was a part of helping to build a girls' high school, a women's college. It was one of the most incredible experiences. So I think Marcus and I need to somehow come to Uganda, but we're both in for 30 and you've got your school.
That's amazing. Yeah.
If I can go on the trip, I'll give another 30.
Oh,
Give the mic to John.
oh my good Lord.
They just don't want to give it to you.
I know.
And I did hear,
I
I
don't
did hear a
blame-
bird
I
that
don't blame
Karen might be going, so maybe there could be a crew. that could go.
I don't know if you're familiar with the work of Dr. Mukwege.
Dennis Mukwege, yes.
Yeah, he won the Nobel Prize, I think,
Yes.
in 2017 for treating, he's probably the world's leading authority on treating sexual violence in women. And one of their challenges is with how women are ostracized after sexual violence. They're looking for kind of the next steps for those women to help them reintegrate. One of my closest friends is on their board, and I was texting with their executive director during your talk. If you're interested, she would really like to connect. So I'm happy to connect you with their foundation as well. They're doing obviously work, I think mostly in the Congo, but happy to connect you.
Absolutely. And Nema, who we saw, is friends with Dennis Mukwege too, so we'd love that.
Yeah, he actually, in a sidebar, was just named 2 weeks ago to the Elders, which is part of Virgin Unites,
Yep.
which was founded by...
Nobel Peace Prize laureate as I
Yeah, he won the Nobel, I think,
exactly.
in 17, yeah. So...
talk about an incredible man, a leader who's standing up for women. It's such a powerful, beautiful thing.
Yeah, so Emily, their executive director, is excited to meet you, so I'll make the connection.
That would be wonderful. Yeah. We encourage a diverse portfolio. Think globally and locally. You can support global organizations that are supporting tens of thousands of hundreds of thousands of Beatrices, but diversify your portfolio with also connecting to a Beatrice of the world. And that what we think is really, you need both, and you marry them, do a little bit on each, global and local, and that's how everybody, we will get there in 10 years if everybody does something.
Hi, Beatrice. Nice to meet you in person finally. I'd like to donate $10,000 to the next nursery school that you put in.
Oh, thank you so much.